Critical Blast Logistics, getting it done, getting it there. Critical Blast Logistics, getting it done, getting it there. The world has got you down, with a smile on your brow. Put a little madness in your life. If life made you unashamed and comics are your estate, put a little madness in your life. Come give your mind a cleanse, tune in with pops and friends, to turn on your Roku box and net. Put a little madness in your life. Put a little madness in your life. Yeah, yeah. Put a little madness in your life.
I was sitting all alone in my library chair when I found a book and it gave me a scare. The pages I kept turning, it quite took me in. What was it? Oh, where do I begin? We read the monsters. I read The Monsters Next Door. The monsters. It had short stories galore. The monsters. It's full of horror and gore. The monsters. I read The Monsters Next Door.
Once upon a modern time, in a little cul-de-sac, black characters from myth and rhyme decided to come back. They moved into a cuter house, they bought a boat and car, they got a job, they got a spouse, they're ready to go far. This modern life, with all its strife, is wilder than before. You won't forget the day you met the Fables next door. You won't forget the day you met the Fables next door.
At a cursed crossroads where souls collide, see the Prince of Darkness, see the Prince of Lies, while the world lies sleeping and the moon's aglow. They may meet with the devil, you know, when your heart is quaking and your soul can't rest. Open up the pages of the devil you know best. People face their demons as each tale unfolds, but the devil's in the details, and their fate's been sold. Hear their fate's been sold, and they're lost to hell. That's the deal you have to make with the devil you know well.
And good evening, everybody. I am RJ Carter, Senior Managing Editor here at CriticalBlast.com, myopic proofreader for Critical Blast Publishing, Chief Cook and Bottle Washer for Critical Blast Logistics, and I'm sure I have a couple of other jobs that I haven't gotten done today, but somebody will remind me, I hope. Today has been forever in coming. 3-month reading periods are not going to happen again, so if you are interested in getting your work submitted for The Fables Next Door, which you saw the video for, there's only a 2-month window for that one, and we're in the second one now. So if you are interested, the end of March is coming up. We will be editing that one in April, and we have an aggressive timeline for several more books this year alone. We are taking off, and we're happy to launch this book, The Devil You Know Best. It's got a little bit of history behind it. But tonight, to celebrate, we want to bring in a few of the people who helped make this happen. So please welcome the writers of The Devil You Know Best. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time out from your day to join the party with us so much. I wish I had a copy of the book with me, but it just went on sale today. It just went on sale. We're gonna just kind of, I don't know how to go clockwise, so I guess we'll go typewriter wise, and we'll start with Ray and just introduce everybody and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into writing.
Oh, how I got into writing? That's
Why?
lost
Why
in
you got into writing? Because
it's in the past, yes. But I'm Ray Zajac, and I wrote the story Mr. Damage included in this volume. I had to think for a second. And I've been writing for a very long time, even published a few things. And that's about all.
AE, we'll take it to you.
Okay, my name's A.E. Stuvey, and I wrote the story One Night at Taco Bell, and I've been writing all my life too. Had a few things published, and I liked the idea of this book, so I submitted, and here I am.
I hear the been writing all my life, and usually that means since college. I think I literally have been writing all my life, because I was talking with my sister about the publishing stuff that we'd been doing. I hadn't talked to her for a while. She's like, "That's not your first stuff." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "There's apparently a manuscript page in a photo album that my mother kept that I wrote called The Kitchen Broom, which apparently came to life and did some things in the kitchen from first grade writing stories." So literally my whole life just took a big break, I guess. Janice, please introduce yourself.
I'm Janice Ryder, and I've been writing, well, certainly since I was in my teens, I've been writing. The first thing I got published actually ever was a play, and it was because my youngest son suggested that I submit it, and it got published. So I was really happy about that. And so I've written some plays and a few stories for anthology. So and one nonfiction piece on snakes, because my background is in zoology and conservation. So I've got a real interest in things like snakes.
Well, it's the right animal for this volume, because serpents and devils, they go together. Larry, how you doing tonight?
Pretty good. Like others, I've been writing for a long time, although like a lot of other science fiction writers and science fiction fantasy writers, you start off as a reader. I think I did do some writing in I did some writing in middle school. I even remember my first story called The Snowflake, a giant snowflake. But anyway, stopped for many years. And then in 2005, I think it was, I started up about 20 years ago, and I've been writing steadily. In fact, a few days ago, I sold my 199th short story. So I'm going for number 200. So I might actually submit that. I didn't know about the fairy tale. What was it?
The Fables Next Door.
I might have to submit. I didn't know about that one for some reason.
Well, it's not horror. So the people I go to and say, "Hey, we're publishing something. Link it out there." It's getting the word out slower. But for people who do want to keep checking this out, if you go to criticalblast.com, I finally got smart enough to put a tab that says books and publishing. So the very first thing you'll always see is what we're reading for now. And then, if you're not a writer and you're looking for books, if you scroll right past that, we have the catalog begins, and it's big enough now to call it a catalog. So all of our books are there. You can buy them directly from the printer this way. It's just as good as buying from Amazon or Walmart or Barnes & Noble or all the other places that carry our books. But the creators, not me, we publish other people. Okay, me too. But the creators will get a bigger chunk because Amazon's not participating in that play. So if you're feeling creatively generous and you want to buy a book, go through those links. Troy, you don't need to introduce yourself to me, but please do to the crowd at hand here.
Well, my name's Troy Reiser. I've been lucky enough to have contributed to the two previous iterations of the Devil You Know series. and find it as a writer. I find it addictive. I so much like the premise, and as it's clearly obvious. Virtually everyone who's spoken so far, I have written the entirety of my conscious life, seemingly, and I decided I wanted to be a writer very young. When I was still in middle school, I thought I had always been an assiduous reader. I think probably most of us have. That I wanted to make that magic. I was reading great authors. Of course, I was a science fiction buff at the time, but that was a golden age of science fiction. So, and it was like Isaac Asimov said, if you want to write well, you have to read well, and pick up the patterns of great writing, and that stuck with me, and I aspire to that. That's all I got.
Troy and I have known each other for almost 30 years now, and while I was writing my entire life, Troy was the first person I met who made me realize that books could actually come out of it. So I was very much influenced and inspired by him to get published. And here we are. Gene, this is your second time around here too, so introduce yourself to the new folks. You're on mute.
Jean Gillette. I wrote the story Human Resources, a love story. I've been writing for myself for my whole life. I just really started writing for people to read it in the past couple of years. I guess that's why I'm here.
Writing for yourself is the best because you can't guess what anybody else is going to like, so you might as well write what you like. There are very few pieces that I've had published that I can say I wrote for myself because I go back and I reread them and I enjoy them as if they were written by somebody else. The first Destroyer book that I wrote, the first Destroyer short story that was in an anthology, I read that one out loud for fun and throw voices onto it. Usually at conventions, but maybe sometimes by myself. You can't prove it. Dan,
yeah,
how you doing?
Good, thanks. I haven't written all my life. A lot of people tell me one day I'm going to be a writer. One day I want to write a novel, and I was one of those people. I always wanted to write, but never did. I always had excuses. I'll do that later. I'll do it later. And then eventually became, well, maybe when I retire. But for me, about 10 years ago, I had a very serious surgery, and I was laid up for a long time afterwards. And then it was, well, it's now or never. I've got the time to do it. And I started writing, and I was lucky that the first thing I wrote got published, and that hooked me. That sort of doomed me for a lifetime of it. And now I just, it's been 10 years, and I enjoy it, and I get published now and then, and just have a lot of fun at it. I wrote a story for this anthology. It's called The Devil Takes His Time, and I had a lot of fun with this story, and I haven't got to read any of the other stories yet. I haven't ordered the book, but I'm looking forward to it.
You couldn't order it until today, so
yeah,
not hardly your fault. Speaking of doom, Diana.
Oh no! Sorry, you caught me unawares. I'm trying to set
I had to catch you with the cigarette in your mouth and all that because it was just like, here's a gothic pose. We'll throw her on now.
Oh well,
how are you doing?
None of the magic would happen without cigarettes, unfortunately. Oh, all vice carries a little virtue. I think my Marlboros are the way Jack Daniels once was for Mr. Stephen King. Not that I'm comparing myself to the king, but
not yet. But I've read your work, so
yeah. Oh, I did a story a couple of years ago where somebody reviewed it and they said the way the character glamorized smoking made him want to pick it back up again after 10 years, and I took that as a compliment.
I'm sure R.J. Reynolds is like, find that Diana person. We need her writing copy for ads.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I'm seriously like, here I am, a starving artist struggling to survive in the field. and perhaps I'm missing out on a lucrative opportunity.
Well, we were just introducing ourselves to each other and how we started writing. So do you remember your first itch to put words down?
Ooh, yeah, that goes back. That goes back to like really early childhood, to be honest. Like I didn't start writing professionally till a couple years ago, as a lot of you guys know. But I've always been a storyteller. I've always been a bookworm. Those things obviously go hand in hand. And back in grade school, my friends and I would have like scary story hour or on the school bus or something. And somehow I would always get asked to tell stories. I'm not sure what the inception of that was. But I must have had a knack for it, at least by 8 or 9 year old standards. And I think I wrote my first short story, typeset to paper when I was about 10 years old. And it's in a box somewhere. And I remember stumbling across it at one point and going, for a 10-year-old, this isn't half bad.
Not bad.
So I think it's one of those lifelong callings. And sometimes it takes a couple decades to figure out how to get enough ducks in a row to pursue it full force. I'm sure most of you guys will agree that time is the big one. You have to figure out how to make the time because writing is tedious.
Yes.
Worth it, but tedious.
Yes, very butt in chair and fingers on keyboard, and that's 90% of it, right?
If you edit as much as I do, if you edit to the point of near madness and have a stack of drafts by the time you're through. Right now, I'm writing all my current to-do lists on the back of what was early drafts for this story in this book. So at least I'm recycling.
Recycle the paper, yes. Want to give some attention to the chat here because we got folks talking out here. First of all, of course, the Madness Comic Network, Pops, appreciate you out there. He has put into the chat the same link that you'll see below the video. This link is different than our normal links. This link has a lifespan, and it will take you to the Ingram page where you can buy the book tonight at a steeply discounted rate. It's only, it's the birthday celebration price. I did go in and edit the link just before the show to make it last through tomorrow because Ingram, in their infinite wisdom, said, "Oh, Critical Blast is having a book launch party. Let's take the site down for maintenance during that window of time." So I decided maybe we should give people a little bit extra time, but thank you, Pops, for putting it out there. One of your co-authors, Johnny Dodonna, is also in the site listening to us. He's ordered his copy so he can illustrate on the inside pages. Perhaps maybe you were influenced by the monsters next door. I don't know. We didn't illustrate the devil stories, but we're going to illustrate from going forward. And he's working at Seppuku Tattoo. Al has face for radio, so I get that, but he's flying through the chat. Mr. Big 65, that is Wayne Klingman, of course, and he is the author of our true crime novels. So we're publishing him. We're just now starting the edits on his new one, the Life and Times of Frank Balistrieri, who is a mob boss in Milwaukee. Mike Walters dropping in to like, share, and say hi. We always appreciate his consistently supporting the channel. And let's see, what's Johnny got to say? I'm dying to read everyone else's stories, although I have 4 or 5 other anthologies I'm in that I haven't touched yet. FFS, I have the to-be-read piles in every corner of my place. Yeah, okay, that's my comic book box collection in the back. I've crowdfunded a bunch of stuff that I've not looked at. So, I don't know. I wanted to talk a little bit about how we got here because I have no clue sometimes. But it's just... This past year has been crazy successful. We started publishing with an anthology of all things called Gods and Services, which was just an idea I had, and people bought into it. It's a thinner one. It's only 10 stories, and it's we're going to revisit it this year. We're going to have Gods and Services new location. So if you want to be planning ahead, the theme on that is that it's the old curiosity shop that pops up. It sells junk, but every junk has a god attached to it. And now now that you've made an offering of purchase, that god in its munificence will decide to make your life better. In, of course, the eyes of the god, maybe not necessarily yours. So this one's a little different than the other anthologies in that it's set in a framework. So there is, there is a proprietor. His name's Hiram Priest. You know the rules of the shop. You can refer back to the shop in your stories. So in fact, we like that. And then before and in between each story, there is a story where Hiram is telling you all of these stories, much like the Crypt Keeper in the old EC comics. He's got a customer. They're asking questions. He's like, yeah, let me tell you about this little item here. And of course, that can't be written until the end when all the stories have been selected. So I know how to guide that story. After that, we did The Devil You Know. And the minute that the guys turned in the cover for that one with the Devil's Fist holding that contract, it wasn't even 5 seconds. I'm like, we're doing 2 more books. I knew it was going to be The Devil You Know Better and The Devil You Know Best. The Devil You Know Better, of course, the numbering is him holding up fingers. And that's why on The Devil You Know Best, he's got 3. I'm like, we can't do a 4th one. He'll drop the contract. The devil will never drop a contract. But, that's how the devil is. And that's where I wanted to go to next. We'll go in reverse order this time. We'll start with Diana down at the bottom. And, the question being, why is the devil such a fascinating literary subject? Or is he?
Well, I think that fascination goes back way into the bowels of human history, right? But actually, I was just kind of thinking about that because the devil is, by nature, a conflicted figure and a conflicted character, right? Because he's now this icon for evil and wickedness and iniquity and wrongdoing, but he didn't start out that way. He fell from grace, just like so many of us, if you follow the stories and whatnot. But in almost any iteration in any religion, he started out, what's the phrase? Even the devil had good intentions. Most of the time he had good intentions. And that actually got me thinking of a parallel with my story too, because my protagonist is definitely an anti-hero or anti-heroine, which is a relatable archetype, I think, because as human beings, we're flawed, we're conflicted. So I think that's where the root of that fascination comes into play, because we relate to the imperfect, we relate to the flaws, we relate to the tragic set of circumstances that crushed someone's dreams and landed them deep in the dark subterranean for the rest of the foreseeable future. So I think at the heart of it, it's because we all relate at least a little bit to the idea of that character and the story of that character and how that character may have become the devil, because he didn't start out that way.
Started out as the angel of light.
Also, you can also look at, every civilization just kind of needing an answer and a scapegoat for all of the bad things and the tragedies that happen, like how the Greeks and the Romans wound up with hordes of different gods to explain everything they struggled with, from disease to crops dying, yada yada yada. So we need a scapegoat. We need somebody to pin our foul sometimes. So then there's the devil on your shoulder, right? Like, it wasn't me, it was that guy. Human beings have been doing that for a long time.
Dan, how about you? What about writing the character of the devil brings a story to your head?
I think the devil gets people's attention. But as even children, many people, even as children, they know stories about the devil. They're afraid of the devil. And as we turn into adults, it's easy to say, oh, I don't believe in zombies. They're not real. I don't believe in ghosts. But most people will be very careful to say they don't believe in evil, that they don't believe in the devil. And as an author, it gives us a wide range of places we can go and stories we can tell and get people's attention. And that seriousness of it, that's what I like about writing about the devil.
There were two outstanding themes among the over 200 entries that we received for this book. And that was the devil and rock music, and the devil and the world of cubicles and human resources. And Jean, your story, your story beat out a lot of human resource devils that were coming in here. It's apparently the new paradigm. What about you? What about the devil? What made you go to the office?
Well, I think maybe that's just my first thought when I think of, well, if the devil was going to just really be in our everyday life, it would certainly be at the office, at the cubicle farm. What else looks like hell, but just rows and rows of cubicles, And I mean, human resources in particular seemed appropriate because it's all about you slipped up. Now your life is ruined. Your entire career is over, whatever. So I think there was just some that just the constant grinding down and misery and looking over your shoulder just was really reminiscent of some of the ideal of like the devil's always there tempting you, or the devil's always there, waiting for you to trip up, just like at work, just like in the office.
Sure. I'll interject here just because it crossed my mind, and I'm old and it'll disappear before the end of the show. Jean, your picture is on its way. George is sending it to me to send to you. He had other things to send to me, so he's trying to package them all up into one unit so he doesn't have to send a bunch of packages from Canada to the U.S.
Awesome. Thank you.
This was this collection gave us a different devil than we'd seen in the first two. In many ways, it was the most human devil of the three volumes, because we had the devil who was the office worker, the over human resources, stuff like that, and we had the devil who was a family man, not just with Daddy's Girl that Diana turned in, but also Meet the Satans, where his family's daughter is not dating Satan; they're dating his son. It was a new and interesting mix of stories to get to read through. But Troy, your story was a sequel to the story that appeared in The Devil You Know Better. So we're getting an ongoing run here. So as you're telling us again, like you did last time, why this fictional version of Satan is so fun to write, or not, are you thinking about making the Kingman deal a full-length novel of any kind and just combining these? Because you own the material, you can combine it and make it your own thing. You're muted.
That is the plan. Actually, the way I approached this, I am by nature a short story writer. My sensibilities are geared for short stories. It's what I do. I love short stories. I love the form. I love reading people who are great at the form. And so I struggle with longer forms. And I looked it up. How did people solve this problem? How did short story writers transition? And I found that J.D. Salinger of Catcher in the Rye fame had gone through the same problem. And he wrote exquisite short stories. They're just marvelous. But he was struggling with Catcher in the Rye, and his editor, Whit Burnett, told him, well, one of the things you can do is write it as a succession of short stories with the common theme and character tying it together. Each self-contained, each chapter self-contained. And so Salinger took it and ran with it, and of course created a classic. Now, I'm not putting myself at that level. I'm saying I love the approach. So that's the approach I'm taking. I fully intend to expand it to novel length. But as I'm doing it now, and with a story that in this iteration, I believe that it does stand on its own. I think it is. I think it is, self-sustaining. It starts out in medias res, and that's in medias res. Sorry, and that's a tried and true literary device, and I have no problems with that. But I did want to touch upon the idea of the bureaucratic devil. C.S. Lewis wrote Screwtape Letters as a response to Milton's Paradise Lost, because he felt, and he wrote about this, Lewis felt that Paradise Lost granted the devil a certain nobility and a grandeur that C.S. Lewis differed with. And C.S. Lewis, of course, was a devout Christian. And so the Screwtape Letters was essentially a response to Paradise Lost. And in Screwtape Letters, it is a bureaucracy. It is, they're very much like clerks, and administrators in hell. And by the way, I've worked in some corporate environments that I swear to God, the culture was like 1953 East Germany, where you just, it's just oppressive. But that sterility and that oppressiveness is what C.S. Lewis wanted to project, as far as, there's a certain, and people would keep begging Lewis to write a sequel, and he finally did. It was a short story, but he said he was hesitant to do so because whenever you write with the devil as a central character, he just said you just want to take a shower. It's just all spite and grit, and you just don't want to. I think we've all created characters or had characters that are very unpleasant, and so you're putting yourself in their heads, and it can wear you down. But no, I fully intend to take this story further into novel length, and I want to experiment with different genres. I introduce a Western genre into this latest installment. I'm going to go for I'm going to take it into the future in a future installment. I'm having a ball, and I'm really enjoying it. And I want to say that I'm so grateful to you, RJ. I'm just so grateful. You've really offered opportunities and interesting themes, and I don't think you get nearly the credit that you deserve. So kudos.
I wish I was making you all rich. I wish I was making me rich, but
it ain't over yet, pal.
We're just having fun with it. You did make me want to mention, though, Donald Vogel is not with us tonight on the show, but he is our leadoff batter for the series. He has a 2-page story, which we had to absolutely keep because it's another Screwtape letter. So we're kicking off the collection with Infernal Letter, and it's he's going back to Screwtape. I'm like, yeah, classic. I like that a lot. Larry. Why is the Devil Thunder right for you, or is he at all?
I want to expand first on something that Troy had said about short stories. I'm also find short stories more natural. I've sold 4 novels. Novels are work. Short stories are fun. For me, it's just very simple. I can't wait to going on short stories. But the novels I did write became very episodic. I planned them that way once I realized that's what I wanted. So, like one of them would cover election for president of Earth all over the world. But those who analyze it realize it's a series of short stories. The China campaign, the South American campaign, it's electoral votes and everything, just, region by region. So it was really a very episodic series of short stories. So anyway, going back to the devil, from a writer's point of view, the devil gives you something, it's one of the most difficult things. They say character is king. Done properly, the devil gives you a very natural, charismatic character. Obviously, it can be a cliche if you don't do anything new or different, but it gives you a very natural character. I've actually sold a number of short stories starring the devil. The key is this. I had a bunch of discussions and debates about this topic, that character is king. Everyone says character is king. I went to Odyssey, the 6-week science fiction writers workshop. We had a lot of discussions about that. And I always point out that if character is king, why are we writing science fiction and fantasy? How's it different than anything else? To me, science fiction, fantasy, character, and idea are co-kings, or king and queen if you want. so to me, you need both. Now, having a devil done properly right away gives you a nice pleasure, come with a really a whole new thing. Without using the devil as a natural character, and then coming up with something very different, new and different. Now, the ones who've seen my writings know that the ideal. I took essentially a trope in my story, turning in the devil, which is making a deal with the devil. There's been 100,000 stories like that. So I decided, well, if the guy does it for the good of mankind, he sells his soul so he can solve, a major thing. What do they call? Oh, the grand unified theory in physics, which benefits mankind. He gets 50 years of life. He's a famous physicist. His girlfriend becomes a famous actress. She's selfish. And then he has to pay. But here's the catch. When the devil comes to get him, he's made a time machine from the grand unified theory, and they have a trillion-year chase through time. So the idea is it's a new idea, this big chase through time, the devil chasing him 100 years, 1,000 years, and so on, except he's going to be stuck for eternity. As the devil keeps pointing out, and this is part of the idea, a trillion years isn't even a drop in the bucket of eternity. It's not even the beginning of a fraction of it. Has a twist ending. But anyway, so the devil does give you a very natural character if you can come up with something new about it, some new idea. If you do another devil story, the best opening scene I think I've ever wrote was Satan's Soul, and that's if you ever take reprints. The next one, Satan's Soul, is poor Satan who's literally up in down the Antarctic. He's walking back and forth, pacing back and forth. It's the day before Armageddon. He knows he's going to lose. What's he going to do? And then out of the sky comes a multidimensional being. And in the end, Satan sells his soul to the multidimensional being in order to be able to beat Jesus and everyone at Armageddon. And he does it, but he has to sell his soul. And then things go on from there. So anyway, so the idea gives you a very natural character. And the opening scene of him pacing back and forth in the Antarctic, knowing that he's going to lose tomorrow, it's 4 days, there's nothing he can do about it, was that great opening scene. And when this thing comes down in the guise of a penguin, by the way. But
why not?
Right about the devil's a lot of fun. If you come up with a new idea, you get the natural charismatic character, and you can make anything you want of him. He can be a pure evil. He can be something different. You can make him a good guy. Say, wait a minute, I'm taking the bad guys out of a population. I'm only punishing the bad guys. It's just a criminal justice system. So you can make him be anything you want him to be. So.
There were very few science fiction stories involving the devil throughout the entire run of these 3 books. Yours, and then there was one where there was a mining colony involved, an asteroid mining colony. And then, of course, Troy, you did an artificial intelligence story in the very first volume where the AI evolves a soul and the devil takes notice. That was, and now we're here in an AI world where it's much more prevalent. So very, very prescient storytelling there.
That
Janice.
Devil.
Yes. Janice, why the devil? And tell us about how he interacts in your story.
So my story is The Devil Makes Mayhem, and like Troy's, it's a Western background. So I actually really enjoyed playing with it. And I think the devil can be a very fun character to play with. The idea of good and evil, and I think there's something in us that sort of has fun with the idea of evil. I run a drama club for children and youth, and I find often if there's a nasty character, the kids have a lot of fun playing those kinds of characters, right, in stories. So I think there's something very intriguing or captivating about the devil. And I think about books like Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. And I think that was such a cleverly done, very humorous look at sort of good and evil. And so I thoroughly enjoyed writing my story. I wrote it towards Christmas time one year, and I really wrote it just for fun. It wasn't originally written with the idea of publishing it. I was just writing something that I enjoyed. So I think that the devil continues to intrigue, and I also think that the devil is often trying to find someone that he can take down, and so that's what happens in my story. The devil is out looking for someone he can take down, and then the question is, can someone actually outwit the devil? And so,
I think the devil's more of a fun character to relate to as a reader, because he's like, I want to get away with this stuff, and I know that the opposition is incredible, but the fight makes it fun. We don't, and we can address this in a roundtable as well, but we don't write that many stories about God, the opposite side, because he's all good, he can do anything. There's no real opposition against him for him to overcome. So what do you write? It's like, and the problem arose, and he said, go away, and the problem went away. So I think I just answered my own question. AE, tell us about what interests you about writing the devil and the story you created for him.
I don't know. I think the devil, for all the reasons everybody else said, I have to agree. He's just an intriguing character. The fallen son, right? Or however you interpret him. But I actually came to this story one night at Taco Bell, not because I specifically wanted to write about the devil, but because there was a story I read, a true story about a guy who was found naked behind a Burger King, and he claimed that he had been in hell. And I just like the idea of putting it in Taco Bell better than Burger King. So I put it in Taco Bell. I was like, that's more intriguing to me for some reason. And then when I was a kid, I had this book. I actually still have it, but it's in another room. And it's just this thick collection of like myths and legends, and it's alphabetical. Like, so in the D's, there's the devil, and the picture of the devil, it's just this like suave looking middle-aged man with like a pinstripe suit and like slicked back hair. And I don't know, I was like, I want to make that guy a character. So
yeah,
so I did.
He's always presented as, I want to be that. Yeah, that's what I want to be. Johnny says, God is a Mary Sue, boring. No, God is a Mary Son. It's a totally close.
Wow, that was good.
That's my dad joke for the night. Probably not. Probably another one. Ray,
Yes.
we're back to your end of the lineup here. Does the devil interest you at all as a character, and how does he relate to the story that you tell?
The devil is the original rebel, because he rebelled against God and fell from grace, refusing to be subject to any constraints, refusing to be submissive to God. So the character I wrote is a person without any constraints. Mr. Damage is the character. He's a rather mundane character because he works in a garage and fixes cars, does body work on cars. That's where Mr. Damage comes from. But he also believes he's a shaman. It's not necessarily the devil incarnate, sort of a wannabe demon. That's what he is, I'd say. But he refuses to be, he has no compunction about doing things. He's totally selfish. He does what he wants to do. He follows his will or follows his whatever dreams he may have. And in that sense, he is sort of a rebel angel. And I don't want to get too verbose. I think that's enough to make my point.
He was a Thracian interpretation of the devil, I believe.
I'm sorry?
He was a Thracian, wasn't he?
He believes himself to be a reincarnation of a Scythian shaman.
Scythian.
And Scythians were these nomadic horsemen in the plains of Asia. He's also crazy, the character, but, crazy and violent and totally unrestrained.
So maybe he was after all.
He certainly believes so.
For me, I always was drawn to the Daniel Webster, the Faust kind of stories where, the contract gets drawn up. There's absolutely no biblical reference that says you can make a contract with this guy. But somewhere
No,
along
that
the way.
comes from Christopher Marlowe, Dr. Faustus, I believe.
Yeah, that
Excuse me
one.
for interrupting.
No, he's fine. But the idea that you could, come up with this kind of a deal with somebody who got kicked out, so you're not even going to the guy in power. You got going to the guy who got kicked out of the office, and make this deal work. There was and Troy, I believe you told me this story. And I know you told me this story. It was an EC comic where the devil wants to make a contract with somebody, and the guy's a lawyer, and he's like, well, okay, but I'm gonna write the contract. You remember the story? And you can unmute and jump in.
No, the point is that the lawyer was going to meticulously cover every base, but forgetting, of course, that when you're, writing and signing in blood, he soon,
it's specifically your blood.
Yeah, your blood. And he covered every base and then promptly died.
Yeah, he sanguinated himself in the contract.
I thought those. Hey, you can't knock those EC for the the banger endings and the.
Yes.
I always thought they were good at that. It was
so. Not enough stories like that anymore. That's why I loved O. Henry so much. Totally non sequitur. I went to San Antonio for a convention, IT convention, and I was at the hotel, and two things were on the hotel map that you could go walking distance and see. One was the Alamo, very disappointing. There's no desert around it at all. It's right next to a Ripley's Believe It or Not museum and a mall. They've just built around it. The other was the O. Henry House, and being a fledgling author, I felt I should make the pilgrimage. So I started walking the direction of the house, and as I was walking, the neighborhood was getting cheaper and cheaper to rent places in, let's say. And I was like, okay, I'm a little nervous. There's a police station on the corner. I'm going to go in there, ask them how far to the house, and if it's close, I'll go, and if it's not, I'll turn back. Walk in, I'm like, hi, I'm supposed to find the O. Henry House around here somewhere. And they're like, the what? I'm like, the O. Henry House. He's an author. It's a national historic thing. It's like, we have no idea what you're talking about, sir. I'm like, okay, thank you. Going to go home. I go out the other door because the doors were on the corner of the building. I go out the other door, and I'm standing there. And across the street, there's this little yellow cottage with a little metal sign in the grass. I'm like, don't ever call 911 in San Antonio. They have no idea where you are. They're right across the street from the O. Henry House, and they have no idea where it's at. So I went and took pictures. It was still my moment, but I won't forget that story. That they were completely lost. I suppose I should address my story, and I've told a few of you before the show started. The entire reason that I kicked off The Devil You Know was because I had a short story called The Devil You Know, and I figured if it's a short story and has no place to go, why don't I just create a forum for it and invite other authors? And I had 20 great stories out of all those submissions that were so much better than mine that I didn't make the cut and I didn't finish it. So like, that's okay. There's 2 coming up. I'll get in 2. No, I didn't. I'm the damn editor. I couldn't make time for my own story. So with third one coming out, I was like, there's not gonna be a 4th. This is the one. And I do have the final say in this book. It is not called The Devil You Know anymore. It is the Revelation of Lucifer to the author at Dante's. And it is pretty much your interview with a vampire kind of situation. And it's a little bit of sympathy for the devil, I suppose, where he's like, look, I'm just doing my job. I've been doing my job the whole time here. If somebody doesn't like the way I do my job, you shouldn't have given me the job to do. And there's math involved, so it kind of gets a little heady there as well.
Hey, RJ. When I was in college, I had this. I took a poetry class, and the professor, we had to buy. In college you have to buy books, right? So we bought it. I had to buy this book. It was Classics of American Poetry or something like that, and it was all the great poets. And then the editor had included his own. According to the professor, the editor included himself and his wife in this. In this collection of great, poetry classics, and we were incredulous. Well, well, he goes, it was the least expensive alternative for us, and he was thinking of our pocketbooks. But he said, so we have to put up with this guy and his wife. But what you did was an exercise in humility. It takes a lot of humility to grant that, you know, in the first iteration, you know, oh, these are great, I cannot exclude some, but good on you, man.
I had to get it done. I hope y'all enjoy it. It was fun to write. But yeah, there's a certain arrogance to taking that spot and pulling rank and getting in there. You said it was your poetry class. Was this the same one where the girl wrote the haiku that was pizza?
No, that was another class, and it was horrific. There's so many bad poets in the world, man.
Haiku, I'm like, I know pizza haiku. I should have had bullet points down for this, because now I don't know what the next question ought to be. But I do know that the last time we all got together for The Devil You Know Better, I did not have a timeline of other books that were coming up. And Diana, you probably remember that I said, hey, we'll come up with something. Maybe it'll be something like, you know, The Monsters Next Door. And you're like, I want to write for that. And Troy, you remember that as well. It's like, and so I spoke it. How many Monsters Next Door people do we have here? I know 4. So we have four alums and 4 newbies. Good. It's a good split. Hopefully, I will be seeing all of you in second and third appearances, because we intend to just keep going at this. Yeah. Do you guys have any thoughts about, you know, the work you've done here that, or stories you would like to see come to fruition? You're like, I wish somebody would make an anthology about this, because I've got the perfect story for it. And, you know, we won't have an order here. Just jump in and we'll have chaos. And
well, hey, if we're going by preferences, I think you ought to do a hard-boiled, crime, hard-boiled crime stories, which I love. You know, Dashiell Hammett, Raymond Chandler, that kind of thing. I mean, I'd love to write for that. That would be awesome.
We're looking for new genres, and we don't have one. Well, we have one, but it's the true stuff. That's what Wayne's putting out there. But yeah, a hard-boiled detective anthology. I like that idea.
Okay, if you've done all these devil ones, how about we talked about God? How about a funny God? I've got a story I'll submit about poor God, who's the Lord of the galaxy. Every galaxy has his own one, except these highly technological beings from Andromeda become incredibly powerful, and they conquer God and make God a puppet. He fights back. But the idea is it's a humorous one. But the idea is, if you do one, about funny gods or just gods like that, I might submit that one.
Well, we do have Gods and Services. And
is there a call for that?
There is it'll be coming up. Gods and Services new location will be coming up later this year. I believe it's after the Fables Next Door. So any god will do for that. I do remember the couple that were in the store talking with Hiram Priest. High Priest, get it? Ha ha. And he said the man's wife said something, and he's like, "Oh, Jesus Christ!" And Hiram's like, "Not available yet, but we're waiting."
You do reprints for most of these, correct? Sometimes
we do accept reprints. If it's a good story, we just like I said, we always ask you to query so that if we do accept it, we know, oh, that's a reprint. Make sure the copyright page says that, so that the original publication people get their notification, just in case somebody checks. Does anybody actually read the copyright pages of books? I doubt it. I should throw some words in there to test that. So funny gods, or we've heard of sympathy for the devil, maybe sympathy for God, maybe actual Christian God should get an anthology of. I don't know. I might get struck down for that one, but make him a character. There was a science fiction story where they found him. There were several science fiction stories where they found him, but this guy and his girlfriend or female companion rather. Track him down to a planet, and God's like, I've been waiting for you to get here. I'm tired of this. It's yours now. And he disappears, and the guy becomes, God, and the girl starts telling him what to do. And he's like, "Are you after my job?"
No, she's not after a job. She just wants to tell you how to do it. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. And then, of course, there was a series of books. Cannot remember the name of the author now, but one of the books was Towing Jehovah, and the other was Blameless and Abaddon. It was all set at the same setting. God had died. His 2-mile-long corpse had been found floating off the coast of Florida and was hauled ashore by the Baptist church and turned into an amusement park. And his head, a skull, became a second moon orbiting around the Earth, always looking down.
I read that.
That big.
That's a trilogy. Who's the author of that?
That's what I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember his name.
I probably have it here because I read that. I have it somewhere in my bookshelves.
Yeah, I've heard that before. I read that somewhere.
Yeah, Blameless and Abaddon was fantastic because it was a lawyer who developed cancer, and he decides he's going to sue God. But of course,
James
God's
Morrow.
dead. It's
James Morrow.
James Morrow. I kept wanting to say Tom Morrow, and I'm like, no, that's a pun. But yeah, James Morrow, and he also did Only Begotten Daughter, which was a fun twist.
Well, if you do reprints, I have what if you have a story where you meet God, he's very disappointed, he does everything by computer and everything, and he interacts with his pet squirrel. And I may submit this as a reprint then, because at the end, the big twist is the squirrel is actually God. Although the other guy thinks he's God, the squirrel is the real one, and he never says. So I sold that story.
I've got something like that. I do have one of those sue God kind of stories in my pile of things that I haven't touched, called Jehovah's Witness, and and it was basically all the metaphysical characters. Justice is the chief justice, and God is being sued by the cries of humanity for injustice in the world, and justice God's not doing his job. The thing is, nobody's seen God. Nobody ever sees God. All the angels have their names and their duties and their functions. And it's where we get to meet Dinel. And I had a friend in Israel. I'm like, hey, I need some translations here. So Dinel is literally the lawyer of God. And he's the defense attorney with no client to sit there. And as everybody takes their seat, the empty spot's there. And Menschel, the janitor with his mop, who's always, cleaning up the streets of gold and making them all shiny, he just kind of says, anybody sitting here? And he's like, no, no one's going to show up. You might as well sit there. And of course, Menschel, the least of them, the servant in the kingdom, was, of course, God. And the only witness he could call was Lucifer, because they needed somebody who was pre-creation to explain why there had to be injustice and free will and all of that to get God off the hook.
You're asking about anthology ideas. If you've done death and you've got God coming up, how about you've done the devil and you've got God coming up, how about one featuring death, the character?
It's very possible we could do something like that. Hello, Leanne. I'm not pronouncing that right, I know. How can you help me say that?
Sure. Yeah, it's Lanuz.
Lanu. Okay. I would not put those letters together in a million years. Welcome. Glad you can make it all the way from Australia tonight.
Yeah. Well, the midday for me. So yeah, great to be here.
Well, we've gone around the panel a few times and talked about why we write and why the devil is such an interesting character. So if you'd like to fill in both of those questions, catch us up on you.
Okay, sure. Right. So I suppose I should probably start with my story. So my background is actually an image of the devil from the Lockhart Gorge itself. So my story is The Devil in the Lockhart Gorge, which is a historical shipwreck site in Australia. So my story was a sort of Faustian pact set in Victorian era, and I did a lot of research into the Lockhart Gorge shipwreck, in which I think there were something like 55 people died in the shipwreck, and there were only 2 known survivors. So yeah, my question was, what would happen if there was a 3rd survivor that wasn't on the ship's manifest, and in this case had been trying to outrun her pact that she'd made with the devil, who was not specifically named as a devil in the story, but alluded to. So yeah, in this case, it's a sort of a wish that she made, and was answered by the only power that be that decided to take on her request that she marry the love of her life, who was an artist, and various downfalls ensued. And yeah, so for me, the devil, I suppose, is a fascinating figure in a lot of cultures, folklores. I write a lot of stuff based on folklore and fairy tales, but I'm also really inspired by history, and this particular shipwreck off the Australian coast was one of the worst of its kind. And there's it's a tourist sort of site destination still, so you can go there. There's songs written about it, so it's kind of captivated many people and different artists throughout both Australia and the world. So yeah, I was kind of fascinated by this strange shipwreck that shouldn't have occurred, because the lighthouse literally wasn't working that night when the ship ran aground. So it was kind of something I was interested in, and I suppose the sort of the idea for me that someone could make a pact with the devil and somehow beat the devil was not something that I wanted to look at. I wanted to look at what happens when you can't, and this figure, Shauna, trying to outrun her sort of debt that she owed, if you like.
It was very very reminiscent to me of Jonah's story. He tried to get away from what he was supposed to do or take care of, and got on a ship. And ships are deadly places to go if you're trying to run from something. The weather will get you.
Yes, the weather will get you in the end.
I do enjoy though. I do enjoy what you were talking about there about heavily researching history, and then looking for the cracks where you can sort of insert things that can make things happen. The first book I had published, not by me, before I got into the publishing game, was a Lewis Carroll story, and it was purported to be the third of the Alice in Wonderland stories. So it was like I wrote the story, but then I wrote like the outer story with footnotes. It was very much like the Martin Greenbaum. That's not the right name. Anyway, there was the annotated Alice where there was like, hey, here's all the in jokes that. Oh, I thought somebody had the name. Here are all the in jokes that he actually was telling Alice Little, and so I created this outer story where, hey, they were doing renovations at Christ Church Library in Oxford, and they moved some shelves, and these sheets of paper were stuck against the wall. And look, it's a manuscript that he was going to give Alice Little on her engagement to Reginald Hargraves, into the whole new story. And here's the footnotes all throughout the sides. As this means this, and that means that. I was making it all up, but it was technically historically accurate. So when the book came out, I, of course, lived in moderate small town, contacted the moderate small town paper, and met a moderate small town reporter who decided that he would, interview the local boy makes good kind of story. Read the book, met me at the library, sat down, and the first thing he said was, so when they found these manuscripts, why did they reach all the way out to you to go over it? And I'm like, oh, you poor sucker. He swallowed it. He thought it was real. And I had to say, you just throw out all your notes. We'll just talk. But, I should have taken it as a compliment, I guess, that I struck it as that authentic. But then again,
Yep.
he probably wasn't a Crowleyan scholar either. Neither
No,
am I
that's,
anymore.
so that's I'm fascinated by history, and I do a lot of alternate history work as well. So I've had a kind of playing with time and with history and with real events, and how do at which point do real events become fantasy or fiction or horror. And in this case, I really, really wanted to write a gothic horror that was not so much the plucky heroine, kicks butt and beats the devil, I was like, what about the other heroine type that we have in Gothic horror, who is sort of more that, I suppose she's kind of more the victim. And in this case, we have sort of plucky heroine, but also, the idea that you can't beat the devil was fascinating to me, because I'm like, I had no way to answer that. Like, how do you beat the devil? So if the rest of you have beaten the devil, I can't wait to read. But yeah, I was kind of, yes, here's this amazing force that has this fascinating history to it.
We went through the question earlier about why is the devil such a fascinating character to write, and it strikes me that it's not so much that he's the fascinating character, but in that he's the insurmountable challenge. And if you can have your character overcome that, then it's such a testament to mankind. Maybe giving man a way more credit than they actually have, but and it might be even some self-aggrandizing character where it's like, look, we can beat the devil. We don't need help doing it, which kind of negates an entire industry and religion that says, yeah, you do actually, and that's why this exists.
So yeah, I was kind of looking at, like an ordinary middle-class Victorian girl who would not have had any capacity to, outwit or, magically outwit either the devil. So I was like, so what happens if, if she can't and she tries to run? And so yes, so literally runs from Gravesend to Victoria in Australia. So runs a long time and for her whole life. Pretty much.
We have George Peter Gatsis in the chat saying nice. He's enjoying the chat. George is the other half of Critical Blast Publishing, so to speak. He is the one who did all the artwork in the Monsters Next Door. Has helped with so much of the layout of the books that we put out. We wouldn't be doing this without George. So he is.
So we owe George great honors.
Is George doing artwork for this one similarly to Monsters Next Door? Are we doing interior illustrations? I don't even know.
There are no interior illustrations for this, and the only reason there are not is because there weren't any for the previous two, and I wanted to stay consistent. I didn't want this one to suddenly be different. But we will, going forward with the Fables Next Door and okay, there will be the Fables Next Door, there will be the Aliens Next Door, and then there will be more and even more of all three. Those are planned. They're on the timeline. They're well after books like Sensei Nosferatu Pak and Fenton Elephant, which are my graphic novels.
Oh, I have the shirt. Hold on.
She has the shirt.
She has the shirt.
She's going to model it for us so we can.
Let's see the shirt.
The shirt. The shirt.
Full screen.
Behold the glory of Nosferatu. Yes, I was actually thinking about just wearing it for this whole thing, so I can go ahead and do that right now.
I'll go ahead and give you the full screen for it. Because
yes.
now we'll get like 100 more viewers here as this happens.
I know, because it's so beautiful. Oh wow, yeah, it definitely takes up the entire mannequin that I am here. Okay.
Woohoo!
Very nice. Thank you. Yeah,
I owe you some real promo photos for that. I go through these.
Yeah, we'd love to advertise the shirt with you as the model, because you've got, I don't know who your photographer is, but they're doing a bang up job. This is going to be an awkward question, but does anybody have to leave? Because we have somebody who would like to come in, and we're at max, and I can't go because I got to drive the bus.
I am going to leave because it is work hours here, and I'm supposed to be doing my day job.
Good
I
call.
have. It is like, what is it? It is 1 o'clock here, so in the afternoon. So on Wednesday. So hi from the future.
Thank you for popping in. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So yeah, and hopefully I can join some of these other great anthologies. And I've started doing some social media promo stuff, so I'll put in the link for this for the YouTube one. So when it goes live, everyone can totally check it out. And yeah, I can't wait to read all these great stories. And it's been wonderful to briefly meet you all. But yeah, I gotta run. I gotta go do like actual work. But
Work sucks, I know.
work does suck. Yeah.
We'll see you.
Adios.
Good to meet you.
Bye.
Bye.
I actually should probably leave too. I have work to do myself.
Okay. And do you have any parting thoughts that you want to leave us with that you didn't get to bring up?
I'm just excited to read all these stories after hearing all the descriptions and meeting all of you. I just can't wait to read it. That's it. That's all I got.
Beg your friends to review it, good, bad, or indifferent, because 50 reviews is when Amazon starts telling other people that the book exists.
Yep. All right. Well, it's nice to meet everybody.
Take care. Nice meeting you.
Take care. Bye.
So whoever was beeping us to come in, they can now come in. Johnny, you chatted you were holding. I don't know if you were holding to come in or if you were holding for something else. Heather is in the chat. Says she loves the diversity of perspectives on the devil in the various stories. Like I said, yeah, he's a different character every single time. In one of them, he's a retiree in an old folks' home, and he's recruiting help for the apocalypse amongst the elderly there. So, Help Wanted is the name of that story, and it's a fun one.
Who's the author of that? Who wrote that?
That was written by Patricia Childs.
Okay.
So I will. You know what? I will actually make this full size, and I will share, at the very least, the table of contents here. Where's that? There we go. I don't know how many people will be able to read that.
Zooming in.
I'm gonna do just that. I've got to look around my pencil carrier, and no, I'm not gonna look around my pencil carrier. I'm gonna move the darn.
It's so small. I bet you could read it aloud for us.
Yeah. So there's the acknowledgments. Where I've got to acknowledge somebody. And it is the teller of tales and the dreamers of darkness who fearlessly reached into the shadows and dragged the devil out of them, kicking and screaming, that made this book the success it is. That's you guys. So te lecture salutamus, 3 years of Latin, totally going to list. So yeah, we have the foreword, third time's the harm, where we just, that's me talking about making this book. Infernal Letter by Donald R. Vogel. That is the Screw Tape story. Ricky's Hand by Damascus Mincemeyer, who's not here. I thought he would be here. He does a lot of our horror interviews with writers and authors. And he is also somebody who's been with us from the beginning, with the very first one. So Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, Paul Burrell, a new writer that came aboard with the Monsters on Board. He came on the show to basically interview and talk about his bilingual book. Hello, Marty.
Hey, how are you?
Doing well, sir. How you doing?
I'm pretty good. I got to catch a little.
Yeah, well, we had to boot some people so that there'd be room for more. So Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, that's Paul Burrell's story. Again, the devil and rock music. Although it's not the evil devil. It's more of a. I'm not going to describe him. It'll steal the fun of the story. Of course, One Night at Taco Bell. That's A.E.'s story that he talked about. To Kill the Devil from Jonathan Garner. Slow Day by Crystal Stittle. The Devil and Annie Oakley by Tom Folsky. That's a fun. I guess that's our third Western themed story in this book. And then Serial Killer by Martin Klubeck. So Marty, we've had everybody talk about their writing history and their thoughts on the devil as a character, interesting or not. So Ned, this would be a great time for you to pipe in and tell us, who you are, what you've done, and what are your thoughts on the devil as a character?
Oh, well, nobody knows. I'm not known. I've done 6 business books and decided, you know what, I need to do what I've always dreamt of doing, fulfilling a wish that I had to honor my father, who got me into reading, having a wall full of books. He built his own bookshelf right into the wall, like you've seen in movies and TV. And I said, I need to write a fiction novel myself. So I started writing, and I've gotten 2 novels out, and I'm working on 3 more. And I had opportunities to at least attempt to write a story that had the devil involved. And so I thought I'd give it a shot. I love writing short stories. I look to Troy's on. I look to Troy as my mentor as a writer, and I look at his writing and I say, wow, someday I might be able to write like him. And in the meantime, I just try to get by, and I've been putting out stuff. So I'm happy with the stories I've written. One of them got into your Monsters Next Door anthology, which I was excited about. And right before you let me in, I heard you guys talking about, is there going to be interior artwork? You had the same guy do the artwork. It's great. I love it. You set a bar really, really high, RJ, really high, with that Next Door. So yeah, you're going to have to work really hard to keep up with that. But so I am in the middle. I've written a YA book. I've written a group. It's an anthology of stories about Sherlock the Gnome, which is a Sherlock Holmes meets Middle Earth meets D&D, and I'm working on a mystery novel that I have written, and of course, you know how it is. I've got to rewrite the whole thing. So you're working on it, and you're trying to get your ideas and stories written. And I find that I like to say that your kids can read what I write, but it doesn't mean that it's always it's not daisies and fun stuff like demons and monsters. I love writing about them, but I try to write them still so my kids can read them, and that's just me. That's my style. So I feel like I succeeded. I was excited to see that I got accepted and that the book is coming out. And like you guys were saying, I haven't seen it yet, so I was really excited that you were going through the table of contents. I want to see more.
Oh yeah, this is and this, some of you know this, but for those of you who don't, this is going to be the first public announcement of it. There are sometimes, especially when you're a publisher who knows the writers sending things in, you're like, yeah, this is going to make it in. It's nepotism, sure, but you already know these people are a known quantity. Now, sometimes you still read it, and something like that. Yeah, we had former alums of other books submitted to this, and they didn't make the cut because it's like, okay, this just doesn't quite hit the themes, not what we're looking for. So it's not a given. But we do have 2 stories that are already accepted, pretty darn much sight unseen for the Fables Next Door. We have a submission from Bill Willingham, who of course wrote for Fables for DC Comics for years, with Fables living in the modern times. So that's going to be there. And then we have a second story that came in from Alan Dean Foster that is going to be in that book. And he is, other than George Lucas, he's the guy who created Star Wars, because he did all the writing behind it. So we're like, yeah, okay, 2 down, 18 to go. And it's not the floodgate of stories that we had for the Devil, but they're picking up the pace as the month comes to the midway point. We're starting about 3 to 4 submissions now a day, so it's going to be where we're at now. I expect to have about at least a good 100 stories to pick from before when we close it out. So let me continue on from where we were. That was Serial Killer, which was Marty's story. The Curious Affair at the Arkwright Club by Mike Murphy. I really love this one. This is it's almost a Wooster and Jeeves kind of story here. It's not Wooster and Jeeves, but parallel characters. The Devil Takes His Time. Dan, there's yours. James and the Prince of Darkness. Again, this one's even more Wooster and Jeeves than the Arkwright Club one. They just both have the same feel to them. Human Resources, a love story, because the Devil's not the only devilish character in Jean's tale here. Daddy issues. Diana, you delightfully wicked girl, punishing, although publishing and punishing are sometimes the same thing. Punishing some of the worst out there. So
she's a femme fatale all the way.
Femme fatale. Maggie, you're in the chat. God, you're a woman. How did that happen? Last time I saw her, she was what, 4, 5 years old?
Yes, she was 5, I think, when you last saw. That's my daughter. That's my daughter that jumped in.
It's amazing. Ross Kelly, who was in our earlier volumes, I said, "Hey, buddy, hope you're doing well." We are. Can't wait to see you again, sir. So get some stories from you back again. After Daddy Issues, we have Ray's story, Mr. Damage. And then Robert Allen Lupton, who was in The Monsters Next Door, is with The Devil with Pom-Poms. Yeah, it works. You have to read it to believe it. Sherry also is an alum, and is it alum or alumnus? I've seen both. Between Rock and a Fur Face. Talk about your EC comic twist ending. This is one of those. Most of the way through it, I'm like, okay, Devil and Rock, impress me, and then that twist of the knife at the end, like, okay, yeah, you're in. Haunted Home Makeovers. Just imagine Chip and Joanna are actually demons from hell, and they're embedding curses into the houses that they're doing, but they still have to film it and have a series and run a pilot and do it successfully so that people watch. That's where you are with this. The Devil Makes Mayhem. Janice's story there. Another Old West setting. The Devil in the Lockard Gorge, which I had to read 4 or 5 times the title alone to say it correctly, which Lianu just told us about. Help Wanted from Patricia Childs. Meet the Satans, Serena Dory. This was a fun one. I could see this being almost like the first chapter of a YA novel set in a world of angels and devils in the suburbs with cul-de-sacs. Widowmaker Love Song, Troy. That's it was interesting to see that it was an Old West story, and yet it was still a sequel to the Kingman deal, which was more of the hard-boiled detective genre.
I told you I'm doing a genre blend, and just for entertainment value more than anything.
It works. Yeah, I'm probably I love genre blends. I'm probably the only guy who actually liked watching Cowboys and Aliens, just because the title deserved it to me.
I liked it too. I liked it.
Okay, well, good. I'm not alone. We can watch it together some night. The Devil Went Down to Genoa. Talk about your historical research stories here. This one is about a mad genius violinist virtuoso, and real person, and a very, very interesting story. Eternity and the Devil, Larry. There's your time machine story coming up as the penultimate one, and then of course, like I said, I got to close it out largely because I called it The Revelation of Lucifer, and I'm like, well, that's the last book of the book, so it should go there, and that's it was. We tried for 20, and there was just no way that that was going to happen, because there were just it was a tsunami of stories coming in. Poor Damascus, he was one of the slush readers. He's like, I'm not doing it anymore. I can't, because it was wearing him down. There were too many of them. So I'd like, stop. Just leave the rest to me now, sir.
So how many did you end up with?
25. I thought for a minute it was going to be like 30 or even 40, just from the sheer mass of the stuff there. But then Sturgeon's Law took hold at some point, and it's like, okay, it's not nearly as going to be as many as I thought it was. So Diana's gone outside, which is where we normally see her on our stream.
Oh yeah, well, we usually have springtime or summer releases, but it's still hell has frozen over around here for the most part. So I keep changing venues. I went inside to start my Hellfire in my in my house with my gas heater so I could warm back up. But then my own 9-year-old little devil just charged in with his father, and apparently he was up to no good. So there's going to be
Hell to pay.
there's going to be hell to pay. But you know, that's the nature of parenthood. And
I want to write a short story about a cursed wig now called Hell to Pay. But,
Oh,
you know,
that would be fun. You know, I was going to say when you were talking about the next anthology ideas, when we did our live stream for The Devil You Know Better, you were talking about potentially doing an angel themed one, which I still think could be cool. You could take that all kinds of fun directions. Like, obviously, I like vigilantes because that's kind of what I did here, but like you could run with like a dogma themed idea, angels and vigilantes and fallen angels and great battles and all kinds of stuff. And
I'll come up with a title.
Swords.
I'll come up with a title, and yeah, because I think it would be great to have a story of it, because now you don't have a specific character, you have a type of character, and
Exactly,
you know,
an archetype that you can build off of.
yeah, and they all have a function which is built into their name. So that would be, you know, that sounds like fun. I put it on the list. Dan, you got to take off. Appreciate you popping in, staying as long as you could there. You have any parting thoughts?
I think Dan already popped off. So
You already left. Okay.
yeah.
There's so many of you on my little tiny monitor screen. I'm like,
I have to figure out how to plug my phone in, otherwise I'm going to get forced out by technology and failing batteries. But I think I can do it.
Well, I've
I
got
have
the
a very long extension cord.
Thomas is in the chat. Thomas, glad you were able to pop by for the stream. Really enjoyed your story, and I'll remind everybody again, the link below will take you directly to purchasing from Ingram, the distributor. It is a discounted link. I want to say it's almost like $6 less than the retail price, which is Amazon's going to charge, and all the other booksellers. It's only good for tonight and tomorrow, and then it will die. It's got a countdown timer on it. It was only going to be good for tonight, but like I said, if anybody wants to test it, go right ahead. The site might be down for maintenance. They said they would be between 7 and 10. I'm like, yeah, right when we're doing the stream. Sure. Thanks. Appreciate that. I was going to not show this, but I had mentioned it, so I'm going to show it anyway. I mentioned we have a rather aggressive timeline for other books, and
Oh, I love it. I love the fast turnaround.
yeah, it's going to get faster. You can see that this is hardly a timeline anymore. This is just, all these books are coming out at the same time. So we have I have them blocked by type. We have client graphic novels where we're reprinting other people's work that they did crowdfunders on, and now we're like, hey, why don't you let us repackage this and get it out into distribution? The red is our original graphic novels, and that's where you have Sensei Nosferatu Pak, the biggest, baddest, flyest MFer to ever wield the mystic black kung fu arts. The anthologies, which is what we're here for tonight. Coloring books, and then Mr. Big's true crime stories. And then I do have down here, R.J. Carter. He is his own genre, because I do have 2 books that are currently being drawn up. Troy and I worked together on one of them before, and I ended up taking it off the market because it just wasn't selling, and I wanted to redo it in a different way. That was A Night Before Christmas. You remember that one? Presenting that one in more of a Black Cauldron kind of style, with the lady who's painting that one up. And then Under His Hat, which is going to be more of a P.D. Eastman kind of children's hardcover book. Very, very short. Writing a children's book is weird because you don't really write a manuscript, you write an Excel document. And it's like line, this is the page. A children's book is written on a piece of paper and it's done. But you can see we've got all these books are slated to end on March 25th, and that's just because I'm like, yeah, I don't need to really put any more effort into this. That's going to cover us for a while. March of 2025, rather. So our next anthologies that we've got coming up, The Fables Next Door, we started it in February. We're going to begin editing in April. It will be published in May. So yeah, fast turnaround. And then we will be reading for, in May, we start reading for Gods and Services, new location. That will be published in August. And if you liked The Monsters Next Door, July of 2024 is when we start reading for more Monsters Next Door. Right before we start reading for The Aliens Next Door. And we're going to have robots. We're going to have other things.
Wait, RJ, you say that you're going to have more Monsters Next Door, and when will that be?
More Monsters Next Door is going to start reading in July, July through August, and then September will be the editing period for selection, final selections. Published in October of all times.
You're saying this July?
This July, yeah. I don't sleep anymore, Troy. I read short stories and I tell George how to format them. So neither one of us can die or the whole thing collapses.
Yeah,
we do have two. Yeah, we do have two that break away. I'm never going to die. I have too much to do. Now I'm going to die tonight. Thanks. Fantastic Journeys, which is just going to be very, very open kind of theme. It's like you go somewhere different, and not like you go to Belleville because you always go to Fairview Heights instead. So you went to Belleville now. The two towns next to each other. I've always loved portal stories, Narnia, Alice in Wonderland, From the Earth to the Moon, where you literally go somewhere different. So that's what that's kind of more about, is the Fantastic Journeys one. And then further down the line here, with no date on it as of yet, Time in a Bottle. And I just want to see, like Larry, time travel stories. I want to get people's different takes on it, because if you want to start a fight at a science fiction convention, tell people you definitively know how time travel works. And it will erupt into chaos because everyone's got their own idea. It's like, can you change history? No, you create a new timeline. No, you can't do it at all. Everything, or if you do it, it becomes the very thing that you were trying to prevent, becomes what history was. So it just completes the puzzle, and you did nothing. So I want to get different people's takes on that. So there's a time travel book in the near future here, within the next year and a half.
I had no idea there were that many already on the agenda. I am so thrilled.
Oh, we are super busy, and that's, like I said, it's not even taking into account. I didn't list off the titles of all the graphic novels that we're doing. We're going to be publishing Ghost Story. It's a GH057, but he's a robotic life form, and he's called Ghost, and he's the third volume of Anna's manga. It's a Euro manga. She lives in Switzerland writing manga, so it doesn't really count. But it reads like one, and it's printed like one, and we're going to be printing up the book for her crowdfunder, and then we're going to be reprinting all her crowdfunder books for mass market release. And that's just going to be boom, 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 clean up, dress it up, and get it out there, and and make her some money. So, God, enough about me. Enough about what we're doing. Last thoughts here. Are you guys showing up anywhere else in the near future? What anthologies should I be buying? So, Ray, we'll start at the top again. Where am I going to find you, and where should I spend my money? Hang on, Ray, you're muted. I hit your mute button earlier.
Okay. No, I don't have anything else going on right now. Just a couple stories I'm working on and a novel I'm working on.
We've got a copy of your novel, so that's one that's not on the timeline because I haven't read it yet.
Okay. Okay.
It may very well end up on the timeline. We will see.
That's good, because I wanted to do some editing anyway. I'll talk to you about that later.
Okay. Yeah, we're entertaining novels. novels are a commitment. You got to read the whole thing, right? You can't
It
just
helps,
say,
yeah.
okay, yeah, we'll publish it. Troy, I know you're showing up in places all over the place now. So,
Well, it just that your mention of More Monsters Next Door. There's a story, and I've tried to market it unsuccessfully, so I rewrote it and then I resubmitted it, and it didn't work then. But I have faith in it. There have been stories that I've had that I read them cold, and I thought, no, they're not getting submitted anywhere ever. And but with this one, I have a lot of faith in it, and I think that it was the whole Monsters Next Door concept that got me. So it was actually written for it. But Comes a Pale Bride, won out. So I'm gonna work this story, and I'm gonna have it ready by July, and I'm gonna get it. In the meantime, I have a novel to write, and this is all very exciting times, and I'm really pleased to be here. Thank you.
I'm so glad to. I was working with you before when we were talking books, but it was like working. I'm so glad that I'm working in a relationship with you now like this. I wish we could have done this 30 years ago, but I didn't know anything. You wouldn't have listened to me, and rightly so, because I was listening to you and learning. Gene, do you have any stories popping up in anthologies elsewhere or other sources that we should be picking up?
Well, at the moment, I am I'm working on some things. I don't have anything pending in the near future, but I'm always working on something. But I do have a couple of David Lynch movie analysis going on at 25 years later. If anybody likes David Lynch, you can go there and read my analysis on Lost Highway. I think is coming out next month. So.
Hey, with the new Dune movie coming out, there should be at least an internet surge of David Lynch search topics to pick that up. So
yeah,
you might get some traffic from that. Janice.
Well, I have some short stories out in other anthologies. The North American Jules Verne Society's Extraordinary Visions. I have a story there. I have a story in Word Balloon Books, Beware the Bugs. My background is in zoology, conservation, and education. So that's about a millipede that gets very large. And I loved writing that one. And then I have another one in Beach Shorts. It's about a young woman who falls in love with a shark, but she doesn't know he's a shark until later. So it's based on the Hawaiian story about the Shark King, if you're familiar with that story. So, and I have one on Medusa called The Medusa Lineage that I'd love to get published. It came close at one point, but maybe it would work for The Monster Next Door or something. Yeah. So
a Medusa monster was not one we had in the last book. So.
Okay, that's good to know. Yes. I have a deep love of snakes, so we used to have snakes in our house, snakes and lizards. But we're getting to the point where they're a little too much of a tie. If I have to have somebody come in to look after them, especially snakes, a lot of people aren't comfortable with them, unfortunately. But
unless you have a fellow herpetologist come in, people are going to shy away.
That's right. Yeah, you need somebody who's very familiar and very comfortable. And I think you should really have an anthology on insects or arthropods. You really should think about that.
I'm open to all kinds of things. Insects and arthropods. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Insects.
Because there's a lot of horror that could be done with. Wow, that takes me back to watching all the movies that I watched as a kid. When they were showing all the arachnophobia. Well, no, not when I was a kid. That was when you were a kid, arachnophobia. When I was a kid, it was them.
That was the bug movie.
But
yes.
It's actually in regard to insects and like spiders, there's some really interesting new research looking at their intelligence and their ability to enjoy things like playing. And so, and spiders, there was a National Geographic article on the fact that spiders dream. They've seen REM movement. A gal was studying spiders, and they noticed that when they're hanging off a thread on a web, they'll twitch. And so she thought, could it be that spiders are dreaming while they sleep? And there's a type of jumping spider that the head is see-through when they're spiderlings, when they're little. And so they can see that they have rapid eye movement cycles like we do, which definitely is a strong suggestion that spiders can dream. So there you go.
That's amazing.
That's fun to know. That deserves a story on its own.
Yeah,
I
dreaming of
know.
spiders. What do spiders dream of?
Well, that's a good question. That like we don't know that. I would
Chasing
think that it would
crickets.
be similar to us in that they would be dreaming about things that relate to their own experience. So you know, like you might dream about something chasing you, or so a spider might dream about being attacked by another spider or something. Yeah, but it's
Big juicy
quite
fly.
interesting, the information that's coming.
Do they have anxieties then? Or there's spiders
I-
have anxieties?
Yes, I would say that the more studies that are done in insects, there's a really interesting article put out in Scientific American, July, August of 2023 on insects and intelligence and wanting to play. I saw an article today on flies. I'm doing our next play that I'm doing with the children and youth group that I run is called The Ultimate Fly Guy. And I wrote it, and it's about a little girl who forms a friendship with an entomologist. So so that the idea that there's a lot that we don't know about flies. They were looking at fear in flies and saying that flies seem to experience fear. So there's fascinating new information. There was another National Geographic article about paper wasps. They're social, and they identify one another's faces by the markings on the faces. So we think that we're sort of, well, we're superior to other living things, right? Or that we've got an advantage. But really, the more we find out, the more we see that we're the same. So yeah, so it's kind of interesting.
I think we have slight advantages as humans.
It was a little bigger.
Yeah, but as a human, you're made up of so many other things. So like you have to have over 35,000 different microorganisms in your gut in order to be healthy. So are you really human, or are you made up of a lot of other things? Are you like a little planet that depends on these other things? So, you know.
That's
Okay. I'll have some interesting dreams
You all
tonight.
don't have ideas for like 12 stories by now. Hang up the right. But
Well,
yeah,
I've got a city the size of Cleveland living in my gut then, right? 35,
Yeah.
whatever, you know.
Yeah,
Okay.
at least.
you do.
The Under His Hat story that I talked about, the children's book, when I sent her the art style I had in mind for it, it was pages from Be Nice to Spiders, which was a very old children's book. But yeah, I said, it looks like this in my head. So draw toward this. And by golly, she showed me the sketches and she did.
Yeah, there are about 50,000 different species of spiders in the world. Only about a dozen are actually dangerous to people. So
I saw my first
kinds of
black widow
spiders.
spider in my adult life because when I was a kid, it's like, oh, look, it's a little black spider. Is that a red dot on its back? Must be a black widow. No, when I saw a black widow, I went into my storage shed in North Carolina. I turned around. It was right there above the door. I'm like, I'm never going to leave this shed alive. It had a thorax the size of a ping pong ball. It looked like it was made out of shiny black plastic, only the thing was moving. And it was like, and very distinct. Two triangles
Yeah.
touching each other. There was no like, is it kind of triangle? No, it was big enough like it was a logo on this thing's abdomen. So
Black Widow, it's another femme fatale. The original,
Yes.
perhaps.
yes, absolutely. Larry, where can we find your name in the table of contents coming up?
Okay. Don't shoot me. I've got about over a dozen stories forthcoming right now. Yeah, 'cause
Amazing.
but I'll focus on. I'll mention one. I have a story that came out just today in Flash Fiction magazine. So that's online. It's just a flash story. It's called A Tale of One City. And it's sort of a takeoff on The Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, and also the short story Harrison Bergeron by Kurt Vonnegut. Have anyone read that story? Harrison Bergeron?
Love that
A
story.
long time ago.
That's the one where everything is supposed to be average. They're trying to make sure everyone forces everyone to be equal. So what happens when this developing but kind of mediocre writer, he starts a mass movement that worships averageness and condemns anything that's great or poor. The idea is that trying to be great, or they're both bad. Everything you try, they worship averageness. And he starts this big movement that condemns the greater the poorer, but he runs into a big problem. of how do you grow a mass movement that condemns your very success in growing it. So that's just, anyway, so he's running into a serious problem there, and he has a hard time. I'm putting it in the comments over here. Tale of One City. It says it failed. The comment has failed to post for some reason. It says.
Yeah, it's hard to post from the chat. I don't know why. It's a StreamYard issue. It used to not be a problem. But,
I can send it to the private chat, but it doesn't. That's weird. It's grayed out. It says this comment has failed to post to Critical Blast. I don't know why. Huh.
Yeah, it's something in StreamYard. I've had the same thing when I go on other people's shows lately.
Okay, I'll send it to the viewers. I can send it to the private chat, maybe. Yeah, there it is. But okay, anyway, if anyone's interested in this, go to Flash Fiction Magazine. I think it's flashfictionmagazine.com. And they have a story come out I think almost every day, and mine came out today. So it's at the very top of the thing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Tale of One. It's only 1,000 words. So
cool.
All right. Diana, I know you're showing up in other places because I see your Facebook posts.
Ah, yes, indeed. Well, and the funny thing is that, like, I seem to wind up a lot lately with back-to-back releases, and the timing of this is just delightful and hilarious. I suppose I love hell and the devil so much that I just went to hell twice here with you guys, you fabulous, talented people, right? And our third installment of The Devil You Know Better. And then just a few days ago, last week, I have a story in another anthology that just came out called To Hell and Back. And that is with both Hellbound Books, more hell, right? And Crystal Lake Publishing, edited by the fantastic Joe Meinhardt of Crystal Lake, the mastermind behind that ever-growing universe. And I just got my copy. I just started reading it. I'm so honored and excited to be a part of that book. There's a lot of talent in there. We've got some Bram Stoker winners. Mr. Jeff Strand is in there. And little old me. And then adding an extra twist of hilarity. RJ knows about this. If I had the book in here with me, I could even show you where there's a mention in the book of Critical Blasts, because in this new release that I'm in, my story is a revamped, extended, made over, extended cut, I'm calling it, sort of my story from the last installment of our Devil series, my story Fire Escape, about the grunge rockers here in Seattle who strike a Faustian bargain with the devil for their rise to stardom. And of course, everything goes up in flames. So those of you guys who have been with this series, authoring in it or reading it, I love the devil and love rock and roll so much that for some reason I was inspired to rework and extend that entire story over the spring, and it wound up into Hell and Back. And it's same story, same characters, exactly same plot. It's just a little more fire, a little more mayhem, a little more blood, and a little more ridiculous antics from the undead drummer who is the antagonist.
Ranked up to 11.
So that's just kind of the timing worked out that way, that we're releasing. I kept getting confused in my head sometimes too, because these releases are just days apart. And somebody would ask me like, okay, so wait, so To Hell and Back comes out, that's Daddy Issues, right? I'm like, yeah, no, that's Fire Escape. But Fire Escape used to be, was in that book, and now it's here, and now it's everywhere. So there's just a lot of hell raising in my life, and I love it. I do probably have to pop off in a minute to
we're closing out. So
check on my own little devil, but I just wanted to say that it's been so much fun exploring all these topics with you guys, and endless thanks to RJ for inviting me into this dark journey again. And it's so funny because I just I always make more work for myself than I can possibly keep up with, and I'm always writing too much. I'm always juggling too much. And I can't seem to resist when Critical Blast has a fun new theme. And as soon as RJ said, okay, so we're doing The Devil You Know Best, the third and final book in the Devil You Know series, there was a little voice in my head that immediately says, oh, you know, it would be fun. You could write a story about the daughter of the devil, and you could call it Daddy Issues. And I just thought that was so hilarious that I put it in a drawer. I'm like, but I don't have time. But then that voice is still there while I'm doing other things. They're going, you know, you want to. You know, you want to write the Daddy Issues. You know, you have to. And I'm so glad I did. It was so much fun. And RJ put up with me being one of the last submissions yet again. But
like 11:59:59.
Yeah, seriously. I was working around the clock too, because I'm a weirdo and I draft entire stories in the notepad in my phone just because it's so portable. And I also I don't have to sort of crouch over the laptop the entire time. I draft up 8,000 words in my phone, but your phone notepad doesn't tell you the word count. So you're just kind of guesstimating. I thought, you guys have a generous up to 10,000 words. I was like, all right, I can tell this is getting long. I keep having to start a new note because it's cutting me off. But it's probably maybe it's 11 or something. It's a little bit over. The first cut of Daddy Issues was 14,000 words. And I had to get that down to a manageable length within 3 days.
Yes. You want to be a novelist. You want to be a novelist.
Wave of adrenaline. And I think you guys will enjoy my little femme fatale.
We had the same surgical issues going on with the Dead Girl Next Door, I believe, where we had to excise things.
Yep. And I swear it's not because I'm a procrastinator. I'm anything but. I take deadlines so seriously. But I always bite off more than I can chew. And I go, you don't have time to do that anthology. You don't have time. No, but I got to make time. So that's when I pull all writers, all nighters, lots of coffee, too many cigarettes. And then out comes Dead Girls or Daddy Issues or whoever the next monstrosity is. But
we'll be sure to make sure that you always know what our next anthology is going to be. And I do struggle to make them something that's creative, something that'll make people oh, I don't see that every day. Yeah, I could come up with something for that. Johnny's got his in the chat here, so I want to read off where he's going to be at. He is in Halloweenthology with Dia del Muertos from Wicked Shadow and They Hunt by Night from Camden Park Press. So that's been up there long enough that people should be able to have written it down and go look for those books. Marty, what do you have coming out from anybody else but us? The people should be looking for.
On the 23rd, I'll be at our local library. It's actually not it's in the South Bend area library, and we're doing a book con where I get to show off the books I have. I went ahead and bought one of those large posters from the only size that you guys had from my Monster Next Door story. So I'm going to be taking that to show off that cover. I love the artwork, so I framed it in a poster frame, and I'm going to take that with me and show it off. So that's coming up. As far as being out in public, I have 3 books that I'm working on. The new one is it's a Good Night novel, and the character's name is Good Night, and it's a complicated story, and I'm looking for a new title. One of the things I will say that I really enjoy is looking at the list of titles that you just went through for the Devil You Know Best. Was you guys, your titles are awesome. Daddy Issues, Eternity and the Devil, Author of Mr. Damage, but some of those other titles just blew me away. It's just great titles. Made me want to read the stories. So I need to come up with a good title for my novel. I wrote it all the way out. I wrote it in third person, decided, you know what? I love writing mysteries in first person. So I rewrote it in first person. Then I decided, I need a new antagonist, another antagonist, and I need to include somewhat of a bigger challenge for my protagonist. And so now I'm writing it back into third person again and adding in that antagonist. So that's just it's going to take a lot of work yet to get that one finished. I'm working on a short story for your Fables Next Door. At least I have one in my head, and I started it, but I know time is. I feel like I'm Diana. I'm channeling her, waiting to the last moment, 11:59 to get it to you. And then I have the Time Warp King, which is a YA book I wrote. It's been out for like probably 10, maybe 8 years, 9 years, maybe. I don't even know. I love it though, and I forget how much I love it. That I really, really enjoyed writing it. I wrote it with my daughter. And I saw Troy's daughter came online. My daughter helped me write it. She gave me the ideas, and I ran with it. And I really liked the book so much. And the guy that did my audiobook for Sherlock the Gnome, which, by the way, is the best audiobook I've listened to in a long time, he did a fantastic job. I'm sorry, go ahead.
It is really good. I've listened to it as well.
I definitely don't want to stop you from complimenting the audiobook. Thank you. So he's doing the audiobook for the Time Warp King. And so I'm going to have that released, hopefully probably the end of the month or next month. We'll be able to release the audiobook for Time Warp King. And of course, if I'm going to release that, I feel like I should be releasing that as a, hey, watch out, because here comes Time Warp King 2, the sequel. So I finally have an outline for Time Warp King. I didn't want to just I didn't want to just do anything. I wanted to really write a good sequel to it. So it's taken me a long time to finally get it in my head what that sequel is going to be. So that's ready to go. And then I'm working on books 7 through 10 of Sherlock the Gnome. The last book in that first anthology book left off a little bit of a cliffhanger, and this is going to wrap it up and bring it all to end. So I have to do those books also. That's what I'm working on.
Everybody's busy. Everybody's busy. I'm glad to hear that. I do want to put one thing out there about the Fables Next Door, because I don't want to reject any stories from specifically you guys, but there's a specific kind of story that we're looking for here, and what we are not looking for is retelling one of the Grimm's fairy tale stories, but you've thrown a cell phone into their hand. We don't want that. And we've gotten some of that, and I'm like, sorry, that's not it. We want these to be the characters that these stories happen to. They're done, and now they're here. So, how do you take somebody who's, spent his life killing giants, and is now, living in, I don't know, Queens? It doesn't really matter. Just they are the characters that and they're still alive, and they're in the modern world dealing with stuff that maybe is still fabulistic. Yes, I made that up. It counts. I don't care.
Fabulistic could be about like a Greek god who's living in the modern times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking more along the lines of the Grimms and the Hans Christian Andersen and that kind of thing. But tales told over time, they're still alive. Yeah, Greek gods would probably fit more into the Gods and Services one. So pick your lane. And decide which anthology best fits your story. Guys, this has been fun. I always love meeting the new authors, and always love seeing our regulars come back to have these chats. One of these days, we will cross paths at a book convention somewhere, because I'm going to have to start carting the inventory around and just showing it off. I have only gone to one convention, and I didn't take hardly anything with me, because I didn't take into account how long it takes for an order to fulfill. So when I got back from the convention, there were all the books I ordered sitting on the doorstep waiting for me. No help at all. But that won't happen again. Thank you all for taking the time to come on here and just hang out and chat and meet and greet each other. And I can tell you told all your friends to come in, because we've actually got people watching. I can see the number right up here above my head as to how many eyeballs we've got. And trust me, that's not the number of eyeballs I get on a regular night when we're just interviewing somebody about crowdfunded comics and graphic novels. So it's great to see that kind of a number a year after YouTube said I don't deserve to be monetized anymore. So, but I'm not bitter about it. So we're going to wrap it up here. It's exactly 2 hours. Everybody in the chat, thank you guys so much for being here tonight. We don't have a show without you guys. we're just, podcast falling in the woods otherwise. So we're glad you're here. And I usually close out with the little stinger, but I think for old time's sake, I'm going to close out one more time with the video for this book. This
Ooh,
is the official trailer for The Devil You Know Best, and I know it's 1 minute and 46 seconds long, which is way too long, but I wrote it and I like it. So here it goes.
I like it too.
At a cursed crossroads where souls collide, see the Prince of Darkness, see the Prince of Lies, while the world lies sleeping and the moon's aglow. They may meet with the devil, you know, when your heart is quaking and your soul can't rest. Open up the pages of The Devil You Know Best. People face their demons as each tale unfolds, but the devil's in the details, and their fate's been sold. Hear their fate's been sold, and they're lost to hell. That's the deal you have to make with the devil you know well.